Coming up now on Animal Outtakes.
So I'm digging down until I find the first egg. When I find the first egg, we're going to use this little tape measure and we're going to measure the distance.
Sea turtle nests line the beaches of Florida, and Longboat Key Turtle Watch volunteers are doing their part to make sure hatchlings have a fighting chance. Our Inspector Planet, Dr. Tracy, is getting her hands dirty, looking for animals that may be found in your own backyard.
I see something moving. Oh my gosh. Oh, you're a squirmy guy.
And they are not related to pigs at all. In fact, they are a rodent. We'll find out what it takes to care for a pet guinea pig. This and much more straight ahead on Animal Outtakes. They spend most of their lives underwater, but during certain times of the year, sea turtles will make their way onto the beach to lay eggs. There is a group of volunteers who are watching and helping this ancient animal, and their efforts are having a huge impact on these endangered species.
We look for tracks early in the season, and even now we're looking for, it looks like a big tractor trailer drove up on the beach with the mama turtles coming up. I have been patrolling longer than anyone in our group. I was mesmerized by the work that they did and how they saved the turtles. And once I actually saw a turtle nesting on the beach, which is rare to see, but I did see it, and once I saw babies go into the water, I mean, I was hooked for life. And I knew I wanted to move down here. So then it became, how can I take an early retirement and move down here full time?
You know, we found this nest earlier in the season and we stake it. We have all the stakes they tell us the story. It's kind of for the volunteers to know and the scientists, but it lets us know when this nest was put here, and then we know that it hatched 3 days ago. So we'll excavate this nest today. We want to follow natural processes. We don't try to interfere with nature. We're really doing this to accumulate data for the scientists so they can keep track of the species, help manage the species. So we're going to come in today and excavate it. The reason we know that it hatched, it's a little bit subtle, but there's a little dip here. So there were about 100 eggs in this nest. And we'll know exactly how many there were when we're done, but the average nest has about 100 eggs. So when it hatched, it left a little bit of depression.
Tim, 'tis the season.
It is.
For the turtles. You've been out here for a great number of years. What are you seeing this year? Is there anything different?
So we're having a record nesting year. On most of the beaches of Sarasota and Manatee counties, we're having a record nesting year, which is phenomenal. So on Longboat Key alone, we have approximately 1,300 loggerhead sea turtle nests. Loggerhead sea turtles are the most common in this area. So we're having a great year for loggerheads. We've also had several much rarer species. We have over 100 green sea turtle nests, which is a much more endangered species than the loggerhead. Loggerhead's threatened. So we have about over 100 green sea turtle nests as well this year, which is very exciting. So we're having a great busy year, working hard out on the beaches. So I'm digging down until I find the first egg. When I find the first egg, we're going to use this little tape measure and we're going to measure the distance. Get it to the height of the sand and then come up and say it was 31 centimeters. So the top egg is 31 centimeters deep. So they breed out in the water, as you said. The males and the female turtles meet up out in the Gulf of Mexico somewhere and they breed. The females return to shore. The males never return to shore. The females return to shore based on where they hatched. They had a magnetic imprint somehow on the beach, and they'll return to that beach and lay a nest. They'll dig a hole. This 200 to 300 pound animal, crawl up on the beach, dig a hole 20, 30 centimeters deep, deposit 100 eggs on average, leave them there. And then 40 to 80 days later, those eggs will hatch. At night, they know it's night because the sun went down, the sand cooled off, and they come up out of the water, or they come up out of the sand, and then the natural world, the water is much brighter than the land. So the water reflects all the ambient light, so they'll go towards the water, and they'll swim out to the weed line where they'll be young adults and grow up into subadults, and then eventually become, breeding age 20 to 30 years old.
In this world that we live in today, it's a really topsy-turvy world. Why are we concerned with the turtles?
Well, I would argue that they've been around for 200 million years or so. So just the survival of their species is important. And they are, there's 7 sea turtle species. All of them are threatened or endangered in some respect. The loggerheads is what we have primarily here, but they also, not just for being around 200 million years, they're a huge part of the biodiversity of the world, of the globe, of the planet, and they're a huge part of the food chain. So there's a balance that I personally think we should try to maintain and keep. So the biodiversity, the existence, the balance throughout the planet, I think is extremely important. And while they nest here, loggerhead sea turtles, they go all throughout the oceans and all throughout the bodies of water. So a turtle that's hatched here may make its way down, in the southern area of the Gulf of Mexico or over into the Atlantic. So there's a whole balance. It's not just to our beaches. They may return to our local beaches, but they'll live their lives throughout the Gulf Stream, throughout the different currents that exist, and be part of the food chain, part of the biodiversity in other parts of the world.
So assuming they can stay out of trouble and get out of somebody's food chain, what's their life expectancy?
So an adult sea turtle can live, the scientists are learning more and more. So the life expectancy is now more in the 80 years of age range. It used to be younger, but the scientists are finding through their tagging activities, they're finding that the age is a little bit longer than they expected. They start breeding when they're about 20, 25 years old, and they'll stop breeding probably in their 50s or 60s, but the life expectancy is into 80. One of the things that would also factor into all this is a hatchling. So there's about 100 eggs in a nest, but only about 1 in 1,000 makes it to breeding age. So they have a lot of challenges to get to breeding age. Only 1 out of 1,000 hatchlings makes it to breeding age.
Obviously, you're a young man, but you are retired. What made you decide that turtles was going to be your area of expertise for the next few years?
So seeing the little sea turtle hatchlings, which would literally fit in the palm of your hand, when they come up out of the sand and they run across the beach, they scramble across the beach on their own, and then they have to swim 3, 5, 10 miles out in the Gulf of Mexico. I was like, if they can do that, I'm gonna do everything I can to help them, because they have so many obstacles against them. And that's what inspires me every time I see it.
In 1969, we walked the entire length of the key, and there were only 9 nests that year. And they have increased so drastically that this year we are already up over 1,300 for nests on Longboat Key. 10, 20, 30, 44 hatched.
So 75 eggs.
We think conservation efforts, our conservation efforts, all around Florida's conservation efforts, the 1973 Endangered Species Act, the turtle excluding device that shrimpers now have to have on their boats, just more awareness of this species that is threatened and endangered. And Longboat Key specifically, Longboat Key Turtle Watch has helped to get past a fire ban. So early in the year, our time period, when we did try to stake nests before we put them on ice, people would steal the stakes for firewood. So in the early 80s, we got a fire ban. We also got a lighting ordinance put through in 1992, and recently have a better lighting ordinance put through 2 years ago. And we now have an ordinance which bans people leaving beach furniture on the beach. And we were also responsible for helping to get that TED law passed, the turtle excluding device. Years past, I used to feel good about, oh, I saved a baby turtle, or oh, I got to see this or I got to see that. But the more years I do this, the more I realize that the reward comes from seeing the entire population increase. And so you know your effects are long-term.
A little later in the show, we head back out with the Longboat Key Turtle Watch volunteers. This time, we're looking for tiny tracks in the sand. We ended up finding something even bigger. Coming up next on Animal Outtakes, you have animal questions. Dr. Tracy has the answers.
I see something moving. Oh my gosh. Oh, you're a squirmy guy.
That's next. Every dog deserves a lifelong loving home. Dante's Den provides a pristine, comfortable haven for dogs that have been abandoned or surrendered by their owners. We ensure that every pup in our Joyful Dogs adoption program receives lots of love and attention, is properly immunized, spayed or neutered, and is in good health. Prospective pet parents undergo a thorough adoption review to ensure a lifetime of love and care. Find your new furry best friend at Dante's Den. For more information, go to dantesden.org or call 844-DANTES-DEN. Dante's Den, continuing the love. Science is everywhere, and it's all around us. It's observing the world, forming questions, and the willingness to find the answers. It's something our Inspector Planet does every day, and you can too.
My name is Dr. Tracy Fanara, research scientist and environmental engineer. At Mote Marine Laboratory, I use investigation and experimentation to answer questions. Nature is all around us, which means that animals are all around us too. Sometimes right below our feet. We have to get low and get dirty to find the really cool things. So let's see what we can find in my backyard, in this marsh. Like, look at this spider. Wow, he is so cool looking. I've never seen anything like that. Probably because I wasn't looking for it. They go right underneath the ground. The craziest part is that these little holes that I see all over the place, I always thought that they were snake holes, but I'm seeing now that they're actually crabs. Okay, remember guys, whenever you're going and digging in your backyard, make sure your parents are with you and make sure you wear gloves or some kind of protection. Now I'm going to be digging with my hands. You might want to use a little shovel, but be gentle because there are creatures underneath the ground that you might hurt. Oh my gosh! Oh, you're a squirmy guy! Oh my goodness! It's nothing but a native Florida worm. How cool is this guy? Oh wow! It's okay, we're friends! These guys actually breathe through their skin. They have a circulatory system just like us with blood running through their veins, but they breathe through their skin. Pretty amazing. So let's go back to the lab and see if we can learn a little more about worms. Worms, they are older than the dinosaurs. They breathe through their skin. They have 5 aortic arches that are kind of like hearts. They are over 90% water, and they can regenerate up to a point. Now, these are 3 very different species of worms. Now, there are thousands of species of worms, over 6,000 just for earthworms alone. These right here are the Florida worm. You can find them in Florida digging through soil so easily like we just did outside. Look at how active and amazing they are. Just like the earthworm, their 5 hearts are right near their head before something called a clatella, which you can see a lot easier on this non-native species, the nightcrawler. You might think that they're native to the United States, but in fact, they are an exotic species. These ones came from Canada, right near where I was born. So these guys are a little less active, however, still active just the same. Did you know that that worms create this liquid-like stuff that allows them to run through the soil smoothly? They also have hairs, and those hairs are really strong, and they're made of the same stuff that's in our fingernails. So these earthworms are pretty awesome. And you can see this ring right here, and that's the clatella. This is actually the head. You might think that this part is the tail, but it's not. And all 5 hearts are before this. So actually, if this earthworm gets cut anywhere after the clatella, this earthworm will regenerate a lot like sea stars. Now we get to these guys. These guys are planaria flatworms, and what makes them so special is their regeneration power. They can be cut into 300 pieces and regenerate on each of those 300 pieces. So if you want 300 worms, you could just ask your friend for one of them. Just kidding. Don't do that to worms. Just like sea stars can lose an appendage and regenerate, earthworms can do the same. They can lose part of their tail and then regenerate. And the reason why that's so great is because if a predator comes up, bites their tail, they can still survive and regenerate that tail. They are extremely important to their ecosystem. They eat dead and living organic matter and actually produce the soil over millennia that we see outside today. So earthworms, worms in general, pretty amazing. Remember that every single drop of rain that falls in the state of Florida goes to our natural water bodies, which means that all that trash on the ground ends up being part of nature's habitat. There's no place for trash in the wild. Remember guys, anyone could be a scientist or an engineer with some passion, hard work, and an innate curiosity of how the world works. Pick up your trash!
Dr. Tracy comes up with some very interesting topics, and we know that there are some budding scientists out there watching right now. So we thought we'd answer some of your questions.
Hi, Dr. Tracy. How does electric eels make electricity?
Well, Raymond, it may shock you to hear that nearly all cells have an electric charge. Yep, that's right. That means you even hold this superpower. But an electric eel has a different type of cell called electrocytes. These cells can create a positive and negative side, which generates volts. They have a special organ that allows these cells to stack on top of each other, creating even more power, producing more than 860 volts.
Okay, we have quite a few here. So there's a nest that hatched nearby, and it looks like a disorientation. So right now we're searching for babies.
We're joining the Turtle Watch volunteers on their morning patrol, and you won't believe what we find. While it has been a record-setting year so far in the number of turtle nests found on the beaches of Longboat Key, Florida, the data isn't in yet for the number of hatchlings that became disoriented once they popped out of the sand. We soon found out as we joined the Turtle Watch volunteers on one of their morning patrols, hatchlings have it tough from the get-go.
We're on Longboat Key and we're doing turtle patrol this morning, and we just came upon this hatch. And you can see the baby tracks that came out of this depression last night when it was good and dark. And they all went to the water, which is what we love to see. Each nest can have, the average is 100 eggs, so there might have been 80 to 100 go down to the water last night after dark. Our stretch is about 1.5 miles, and we start at civil twilight, which now is probably about 6:45. And as soon as it's light enough to see tracks is when we start. And we can be finished at 8 o'clock or we can be finished at 11 o'clock. It just depends on what kind of work we have. We never know each morning what we're going to find. This is one that it hatched and dissoed, which means disoriented, 2 days ago. And that means that some of them probably went to the water. You can't really see the tracks now, but many of them went back to a condo area, which means there was probably lighting on that shouldn't have been. So that's what we don't like to see. The last hatch, which was good, that's what we love to see in the mornings. Okay, we might have a hatch down here as to where it came from. So some of the times we're following baby tracks. Okay, we have quite a few here. So there's a nest that hatched nearby, and it looks like a disorientation. So right now we're searching for babies before the birds get them. All right, you go that way, I'll go this way. Our first priority is to find any live hatchlings. We have to fill out a disorientation form, so we have to count tracks as to which direction they go, what property they go to, and it gets filed with the state. So you've seen the perfect hatch and our nightmare hatch. What's that little thing? The leaf. Oh, you got one. Oh, okay. Here, I don't have sand, but yeah, it's cool to see them, but we're always sad because we know their chances of survival are diminished if they don't make it out right away.
Even with regulations and efforts from Turtle Watch volunteers, hatchling disorientation is a major concern. So if you are living or visiting the beach during turtle nesting season, do your part to ensure hatchlings have a better chance of survival. Stay off the beach at night and turn off all the lights. Stay with us. There's more animal outtakes coming up next.
They learn how to take care of an animal, and it teaches them selflessness and being responsible for something beyond just themselves.
Animal Outtakes is produced by Dante's Den Foundation, a nonprofit group dedicated to creating the best life for dogs. If you would like to learn more about Dante's Den, donate, or volunteer, visit our website, dantesden.org.
This is a guinea pig. Hi. Guinea pigs make wonderful starter pets because they're super easy to take care of and need just lots of love. Basically, every day you're going to change its cage, or every day you're going to check its food and water. Once a week, clean its cage out, and then lots of love and attention. Really good for young kids, for starter pets, learning how to take care of an animal. And you know, those basic things of being sure they're fed and watered every day. They just love to be held and love to have attention. Yeah, they're super sweet. Okay, guinea pigs just eat basic guinea pig food. Also can do fruits and veggies, so those are really good to add into their diet. Hay, you also want to have some hay every day. Works really good for their diet and for their teeth and digestion. Guinea pigs typically are going to have about a 6 to 8 year lifespan. They make little grunty noises, and most of the time that's little happy noises. They enjoy being paid attention to, they enjoy being pet, they enjoy spending time with you. That's just something that's really important with your animals. They like that quality time. The guys that have the longer hair, like the one that I'm holding, you definitely want to brush his hair out because it can get tangled just like your hair would. Shorter hair guys, you're not going to have to brush as much. But the longer hair ones you are going to want to give a little brush to because they'll get a little tangled hair, and you could also put a little bow in its hair too. I think it teaches children responsibility, so they learn how to care for an animal, and it teaches them something outside of themselves.
We hope you had fun and learned a thing or two along the way. We'll be back here again next week with even more animals and some wild adventures. Until then, thanks for watching. Stay with us. There's much more animal. What was that? What was that? Did you want a mic check? 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, many kisses.